day and welcome. I am Stephen Michael Elinson, the worldwide head of the restaurant, catering, and food service practice for Amazon Web Services, or AWS, part of a team dedicated to the very specific needs of travel and hospitality customers. I'm excited to have you join me for our Enhancing Customer Experiences and Driving Innovation Through the Cloud session. There's a very steep contrast and comparison that we can make between customer experiences that occur in the physical world and also in the digital world. My perspective is that restaurants have more historically had physical experiences and less digital presence, while the airlines many years ago moved into digital selling and have been able to fulfill all those experiences in the physical realm. I'm really looking forward to this interesting conversation. I know it's going to be filled with different perspectives, the sharing of lessons learned, and ideas that can actually be applied to all customers, both internal and external. Please allow me to introduce Jason Birnbaum, Senior Vice President of Digital Technology at United Airlines. Many are familiar, but United is nearly approaching its 100th year of operations. It was also the founding member of the Star Alliance, and it is the third largest airline in the world. It flies to more than 358 different airports. Justin Skelton, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Dine Brands Global. Dine has 60 years of tradition, 3,600 outlets, and is one of the world's largest full-service dining companies. It's also the parent to Applebee's Bar and Grill and IHOP. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Awesome. Justin, I'd really love to start with you. Since both airlines and restaurants serve multiple customers, can you perhaps help us off by beginning to share how you define customers for your brand?
So we define our customers in really two different ways. We have our external customers that most importantly represent our guests, the people that engage our food products in a lot of different ways, indoor dining, as well as through our digital platforms, through our web, mobile app, as well as through our third-party delivery service providers, so the DoorDash, Uber Eats, and such. We also have our franchisee partners as well. We're at 97% franchisee model. We call it asset light. But essentially what that represents is a number of franchisees, both in Applebee's and IHOP. We support them through a variety of different committees. So we have business committees, technology committees, and councils on both the Applebee's and IHOP side. And then on the internal side, we support our teammates that either indirectly or directly support these clients. So, for example, our teammates are a big part of what we do here at Dine Brands. When you think about what we did during the pandemic, as an example, I think most businesses, we were nearly 100% work remote. So it was important for us during that period of time to have all the tools and the technologies that allowed them to be productive during this very difficult time. But we also have our corporate clients as well. So the typical HR, finance, legal, and IT. So that's how I would define our clients.
That's fantastic. And already right off the bat, I think we've got a great insight. Your idea about those advisory boards is maybe something that others can learn from immediately. Jason, I think you have an extra unique aspect to your business, and that would be what I call regulatory and compliance. I'm only familiar with some, but I think about the government, the airports, TSA, FAA, and all the others that I have to engage with when I get the opportunity to fly on United. How do you engage all of your different customers that you have to serve?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, when you think about customers on the airline, we've got our real, our true customers, our passengers that fly with us. And we think of those as both leisure travelers, people that are taking their family on trips, seeing friends and family, but also business travelers as well. And that opens up a whole set of other customers, travel agents, corporations, et cetera. But when you think about the stakeholders that you were describing, there is a lot. I mean, certainly the communities that we operate in, the federal government, the FAA, the FDA, as you know, we operate a lot of food operations as well, the TSA, in all the international organizations, because we don't just fly in the United States. So there's other government and regulatory bodies as well. And so we engage with them. It's interesting as you think about it, a lot very similar ways. It's about us understanding what they need from us, whether it's the travel journey or whether it's technology or information or regulation, and really try to find innovative ways to partner with them. And we have great partnerships with the TSA, looking at biometric technology and other things. So, there's been a lot of really good examples of where, we've been able to innovate with in places that you wouldn't normally think about.
That's awesome. And that actually has me thinking back towards Dine. You talk about innovating in unusual places. And Justin touched on a little bit the result of what the industry had to do because of the pandemic. I'm very familiar, and I know that you launched a virtual brand. It's called Cosmic Wings. I also know that you've been revamping a lot of your like point of sale systems. You've been enabling your servers with handheld mobile tablets. You're introducing digital wait lists, and you're doing all sorts of other things to just really help you better serve your customers. Can you maybe share with the audience, like how do you prioritize all of these amazing initiatives that allow you to continually create a great impact for your guests?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Yeah, and we've got a pretty sizable portfolio of things we've been deploying, so I appreciate that list. There's a lot of other things we're working on as well. In terms of how we prioritize, that's a great question. A lot of the prioritization comes in the form of engaging with our customers, as I referenced before. We spend a lot of time with our franchisee councils and our brands to really understand what are the projects and the initiatives that are going to make the biggest difference and the biggest impact. The things like guest experience, return on investment, things like that. How, things like labor shortage, right, which is a big deal right now. How do we actually have initiatives that actually support that? What we do from there is we work to get the list, and then we work with our brands and with our partners to understand what things we need to deploy first, right? What are the things that are going to make the biggest impact? I think the other thing that it should be recognized here is that even though we go through this process, and we learned this during the pandemic, is the fact in many ways things happen, things occur, and you have to be able to course correct your plan. So, for example, during the pandemic, digital share was increasing in terms of percent of revenue because a lot of our dine-in restaurants were actually closed during that period of time. So a lot of the initiatives that we had contemplated and planned for that year needed to change. And finally, I would say that as we're thinking about how we prioritize from a technology perspective, it's important to understand, are there things that are foundational? Those things that are foundational that support the growth initiatives that need to be part of the overall plan that we deploy.
That's fantastic. Without putting you too much on the spot or causing you to disclose anything, I'm curious, is there anything on this list that you've described that might kind of surprise our audience?
Well, we've got some interesting things we're doing. It's a great question. I mean, some of the things are already in place today. So, for example, order ahead, which is a real cool technology we deployed. Started last year, also continued this year, but you can actually use your mobile phone, your mobile device, and you can actually order your food ahead. And we have geofencing capabilities. So the kitchen and the restaurant is notified your whereabouts and how close you are to the restaurant. And that way we can bring the food out hot and fresh to you. So that's one of the things. And I would say that on top of that, we're always looking for other things to improve that guest and dining in experience is one of the things we're working on as well. And then finally, we are looking at things like some level of robotics. We're just very at the early stages of assessment, but the things like deep fry stations won't be anything that potentially the guest would see, but it's something we're looking at in terms of how we innovate and improving the experience of the folks that work in the restaurants, our servers, our cooks, and folks that actually provide that experience to our guests.
It's incredible. It's amazing to see the rapid pace of innovation. Thank you for sharing that with all of us. Now, Jason, I'm really curious. I have this perspective, right, that in my opinion, airlines have been very far ahead on retailing, cross-selling, upselling, and doing everything. And in my opinion, as Justin is proving, I feel like the restaurants are catching up to the airlines. Can you maybe share with us any of the innovation that you're putting in to really help your guests go beyond just the booking experience?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I was thinking about what Justin was saying, like we probably had a very similar experience. I mean, the pandemic was so so obviously so transformational on so many levels, for our business. And I know this is a call around, restaurants, hospitals, everyone was impacted. And at the airline, we saw 95% of our business, go away in one day. And so, it was unbelievable pivot was required. And so we did reprioritize, and we did start to think differently about which programs we need to bring to the table to keep the airline, to make sure that we survive. And it's a lot of programs around cleanliness and things. Some of the things we did from an innovation perspective beyond just ticketing, we've moved to a cardless or a touchless cabin, meaning that you now store your credit card on your app or on your mobile device before you get on the on the airplane. And if you want to buy drinks or food, you do it through that process, which we did as a reason for cleanliness and to reduce contact during the pandemic. But what we found is it creates a much better experience, and it's something we're really excited about. Our customers have given us really good feedback. Now you don't have to find your wallet, fumble for your card. We know who you are. We can just charge you sort of right. It's almost the hotel. We brought it from the hotel, charge it right to my seat as opposed to right to my room. So that's one big innovation. The other thing that we're really excited about is this process called Agent on Demand. And what Agent on Demand said, and during the pandemic, what we were already experimenting with it, but what we found were people wanted to have face-to-face contact and still needed to get help, but we wanted to limit the way they engaged sort of really in a physical proximity. And so along with the idea that people were getting very comfortable with QR codes, sort of we had this window to create this product. And what we did is we said, hey, here's a QR code, use your phone, click a link, your phone will connect to a live agent. And so you don't have to wait in line. You can just connect, you can talk to them using FaceTime. Again, something we've gotten very used to during the pandemic, and get assistance or on the spot, and no more waiting in line, and no more having to have uncertainty about your journey. So that's what we're really excited about, because we feel like it gives customers the what I call the win-win, where they're able to get fast. Technology is giving them fast service, but we don't lose the personal touch. And we think there's going to be a lot more opportunities for that as well. So that's just a couple examples. We've had to do a lot. We've had to pivot hard, but it's been, I think, ultimately good, and will be good for the industry and for the customers when we bring these things to market.
I agree. I'll say something I hear from other leaders such as yourselves, that it really was a great accelerator. These were paths our businesses were going to head down anyway, and all the pandemic did was just kind of rapidly accelerate it. I must give you credit. I think your organization has created the best use of remote or distributed work I've heard. That Agent on Demand sounds absolutely fantastic. So thank you for sharing that innovation. You sort of surfaced an interesting aspect, which is that your customers maybe have different levels of service expectation, right? I think you used the term like high touch and low touch. I'm reflecting back on how Justin shared that there's all these different channels that his restaurant brands must serve, right? Dining in physically in the restaurant, takeout, curbside, delivery. I'm maybe curious to go back to you, Justin. How are you able to incorporate the different levels of desired interaction that your customers have into the innovation that you release?
Yeah, and I have to give a nod to the internal team here, our business analytics, data management, right, customer insights team, both on the business as well as on the IT side, are just world class. And so a big part of how we get to that is really understanding what those customer preferences are. And we can do that, right? We've done that with our website and mobile app. I think we rebuilt and redesigned the IHOP, and we call it Web 2.0, but it was a complete change in user experience, user interface, and order flow capabilities that really was a function of the feedback we had gotten from the analytics we were doing on the old website. So, for example, we would look at things like abandonment rates and cart conversion rates, and we were really trying to get insights into why exactly did we have levels of abandonment rates that certainly we don't have now. And so, again, that informed us to take a look at those customer preferences. So we take that information, and we're also able to plug that into our customer relationship management capabilities, CRM, as well as offer management. So once we sort of understand what their preferences are, then we can actually drive those offers to our client base. So it's really been really effective at being able to both gather that feedback and do the data analytics to figure out where the customer certainly wants to be, where they are, and the products they prefer, and building that into our capabilities. And the website and mobile app is a perfect example of that. The other thing we get data around is through our guest surveys. So we do a significant amount of guest surveys in restaurant and in other places. And that really informs our menu innovation, right? What are the things that our customers really prefer? What works, what doesn't work? And how do we continue to use that feedback to improve the guest experience there?
That's awesome. I know I've submitted a few of my ideas for the Applebee's food, so I'm glad to hear that you're taking that feedback directly from the customers. You also referenced, customer experience and customer preference. And so my mind immediately floats into like loyalty and reward and recognition programs. So of course, I know United Airlines has won awards for their amazing program for like 15 years in a row. So I'd be curious to hear from you, Jason. How do you plan to continue to evolve that program and be able to continue to deepen your relationship that you have with your travelers?
No, it's a great question. And we're first very fortunate to have an unbelievable product that people want to fly on and they want to earn miles to redeem. And so that foundation is phenomenal. But when you think about a loyalty program, what makes it valuable are a couple of things. One is that you get to earn those points, not just doing we want them to fly, but you can also earn them with a credit card. We're building other partners and relationships where you can earn miles doing lots of things. So now you're getting these miles, and then we want to find ways to make them redeemable in a lot of ways. Obviously travel, but also not just buying a ticket. You're able now to use your miles to buy drinks, to buy food at the airport. How do we really make the usefulness of those miles even more? And so you're going to see us continue to double down on more places for the miles to be used, more places to earn them, and then using that information that our customers give us to anticipate their needs, right? I think Justin talked about using artificial intelligence and machine learning, and this is a place where we really think there's a opportunity to help those customers with the information that they're providing us to anticipate, if something goes wrong in their journey, how do we get them in the right answer to their question? Or if they're on if they're on a flight and they typically order certain things, how do we make sure we always have those things available for them? So it's exciting for us because I think we're just at a point where we've got a lot of opportunity now that we're coming out of the pandemic to really take advantage of this program and expand it and make it something people value even more.
I think there's a lot that the rest of the travel and hospitality industry can certainly learn and aspire to follow in that terms. I know for the restaurant industry, there's been at least 5 major national launches of new loyalty and reward programs. Many are just introducing them and maturing them. I'd be curious to hear from Justin. What are your plans and how does loyalty and rewards kind of fit into your strategy?
Well, I got to tell you, it's a great question and a bit of a nod to Jason and the airline industry. I've been a frequent flyer mile consumer for years, and it's amazing. I think that's been going on probably for a few decades now, it seems like. And so we're excited about our loyalty program for sure at IHOP, and we've got a new loyalty program we deployed here within the last 60 days, and it's really, really exciting. It's called the International Bank of Pancakes, and it's something brand new. You basically have your mobile app. You can go in, you have to register. You can do it through the website or the mobile app. You can put your information in there and you can immediately start getting rewards. And the good news is, a shameless plug, this is what it looks like, the International Bank of Pancakes. For every $5 you spend, you get 1 pan coin. And so again, it's really exciting. And it also speaks to the sort of innovation we're doing at the company. And it's really exciting to be part of this. In a nod to our leader, John Payton, and the brands and other partners we've got. And again, it gets back to how we get that feedback, right? What do our customers want? And we know our customers really wanted a loyalty program, and it's great that we were able to deliver that. So really, really exciting stuff for the company, and really exciting stuff for our guests. And so far, by the way, we just hit over 1 million customers who signed up. And that's probably within the last 45, 60 days. So it's pretty remarkable. And it continues to be, we still have a tremendous enjoyment around the level of success we're getting right now. So really, really, really excited about that.
That is incredible. Congratulations. Well, we'll make it 1,000,001 because we'll have to make sure that all of our listeners sign up immediately after watching this webinar. So thank you for that. Now, Jason, I'm fortunate. I have some folks that have been in the airline industry way back in my family. And so I'm actually familiar and know that United had something that they pioneered called a flight laboratory, I think sometime back in like the 20s or 30s. And so you were probably the first organization to like really figure out how did you get that voice of the customer and make sure you integrated it into all of your experiences. I'm curious to understand, how do you do that today? How do you make sure that you're capturing what your customers want?
look, and what's interesting about the question is not only is it about capturing what they want, but it's anticipating what they need too, right? Because I think part of it is the art and science. I mean, we certainly listen, and to our customers, whether it's focus groups and surveys. We spend a lot of time, looking around the industry and talking to experts, other industries, trying to figure out what's happening because it's been a challenge. I mean, through the pandemic, obviously things changed pretty dramatically for our customers and what they wanted and what was the important may have been. And before the pandemic, it said just get me there, get me on time, make sure my bag is there. But now, after during the pandemic and after, I think there's been a change in terms of both the level of service expected, but also um, the cleanliness, the kind of policies we put in place. So we spend a lot of time in focus groups with our customers. The other good source of information for us is our frontline employees. I spend a tremendous amount of time with my employees, with our frontline, understanding what they're facing, because a lot of times my job isn't necessarily to give exactly what to deliver the thing to the customer, but it's to give the employees the tools to solve those problems. And so I'm in the airports all the time, we could say above the wing, sort of in the lobby, or even down on the ramp below the wing, where the bags are, and with the maintenance crews, just understanding kind of their challenges and what they're facing. Because if I can make their job easier, that plane's going to get out on time, that bag's going to get loaded, that passenger's going to get where they need to.
As you think through how you're empowering all of those team members, as you described, right, to then help the customers, are there any technologies you're adopting that our listeners might be surprised to learn about?
Yeah, yeah, we got a lot of things in the pipe, and I think what's really so we embraced, certainly we embraced mobile for our customers, and then about 5 years ago we went basically full mobile for our employees, and so all of our frontline employees have some mobile device to do their job. But now we're looking at really how do we sort of up the game a little bit for them, and so we're looking at augmented reality, so that they can use their device, hold up their device. If they want to see what that flight is, they can hold up their phone and see some information and the status above it. We're looking at virtual reality. As the pandemic comes out, we're going to be hiring a lot. I think I've heard estimates, whether they're pilots, flight attendants, estimates of 30, 40,000 people over the next 5 or 10 years. And so we've got to train those people and make sure that they can get and be fast at their job, get up to speed with their job as quickly as they can. So we're using a lot of VR technology to educate our folks on how do you operate that jet bridge, which is, get the ramp down by the plane, or how do you do certain things at the gate that a lot of our employees who would have had 20, 30, 40 years experience knew just instinctively. But as you are bringing on the next generation, they don't have those same skills. So those are a couple that we're doing. We're also spending a lot of time with autonomous vehicles. So you look outside your window at the airport and you see all the carts driving around and all the equipment driving around. And the question we're asking is, could we automate some of that? Do I have to have people driving all of those things, or can that bag cart just know where to go? So that's still a little farther out, but we're excited some of the experiments we've been operating with that.
It's absolutely incredible. Thank you for peeling back the curtain. I sort of have a vision of what that future airport and ground operation will look like, and it's just amazing. I would suspect that a lot of what you guys describe is actually as a result of working with the cloud and getting some agility and flexibility and the cost savings that comes from working in an optimized cloud environment. I'm curious, as you think back to like your journey and the innovation you've released, is there maybe an initial reason or initial justification as to why you started to begin to experiment and to move to the cloud?
Yeah. Of course, we did it for two reasons. First, we did it because we at the airline, reliability, resiliency was critical, and we felt like getting to a cloud platform would give us options to be more reliable. Like at the end of the day, our customers expect us to operate the airline, and we do it in a safe way, and our systems have to be running to do that. So that was step one. But what we learned in the journey is the way you think about delivering value, the way you think about delivering technology and innovation is a lot different in a cloud environment. When you're doing true DevOps, when you're doing when you're building those pipelines. And so what it enabled us now to do is to go fast and experiment and fail fast and fix. We've added that fix to it, and move on from the journey. And so it's what started out as a resiliency and a reliability play has turned into a transformation where, the whole organization, not just the technology team, but the whole organization is starting to think about how do they move much faster, experiment, try new things. And it's been fun. It's been amazingly fun and empowering for everybody that's involved in it. So it's been a really good process.
Fantastic to hear. I'd be curious, same sort of to you, Justin, like if you can maybe share back, your original justification for moving to the cloud. And then maybe are there any unexpected benefits that you've realized as a result?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the primary driver was cost. I mean, when I think about where we were relative to our workloads, where they were located, predominantly they were in colo data centers. Probably 90% colo data centers. The other 10% were probably in regional support centers, if you will. And so the biggest benefit, or at least that we were contemplating, was how do we actually reduce the cost of computing? And so cloud computing was a great obvious choice. And so we completed that journey. When I say we completed, we actually did the largest number of migrations probably within the last year or so. There's always new projects coming, but all new projects will be put into the cloud. And I would say the biggest benefit was when we look back at the pandemic, a good portion of all of our transactions were digital in nature. And so, the ability to be able to scale down and scale up very, very quickly, and across all the different applications we have, we couldn't have got there if we weren't running in the cloud. Because if you're in a data center, we didn't have to go through that provisioning process of spinning up new servers, new capabilities in a very short period of time. The other thing I would add would be, we have a seasonal business to some degree, to some extent, right? So when you think about our big days, it's going to be things like Super Bowl. When you think about Applebee's, you think about people that want to have those, activities in their home and chicken wings and delivering. And you think about things like Mother's Day, right, where people want to dine in. And so there's some seasonality there where people consume our products on those big days. And so it's important that our technology will be able to flex and meet the needs when those needs arrive. And then finally, we are putting in a new point of sale for IHOP, and then we're going to be putting a new point of sale in for Applebee's. And one of the things we made as a requirement is it needed to be cloud-based. And a large reason of that is that when you think about a client server setup versus a cloud implementation, you think about data security and data privacy. You think about just the protection of your assets. You think about disaster recovery and resiliency, redundancy, much of what Jason was referencing. So these are all the benefits that we were able to gain already just by going to our migration to the cloud, but also ensuring that any new projects we have are required to be cloud-based.
That's fantastic. And maybe while I have you thinking that train of thought, we're not able to do a live Q&A during our session, but I feel like I know what the number one question would be from all the folks watching, because I hear from customers quite frequently, like they tell me they just don't know where to start. So since each of you have just kind of described your journey as well as the amazing innovations that you've each, experienced, is there maybe a place where you might inform our listeners, like, where's a good place to start? Or is there like a single light bulb aha moment that occurred for you where you really knew this was the right path to be on?
I mean, well, I can start. I mean, I think part of this migration to cloud has to be what are the candidates, right? Is there a filtering, which is what are good candidates for cloud? And now we've gotten to the point where cloud is pretty much everything runs in the cloud now, right? When you think about software as a service and all the other things that are happening in the cloud, it's becoming so ubiquitous and so normal that most everything is done in the cloud these days. Having said that, it is important to start somewhere. It is important to figure out those applications that are currently running in a non sort of software as a service model. What's the best opportunity for that migration? And I think it's important just to get started. And some of that is building some trust that you can actually do it and it actually works. Would be just some thoughts around just getting started. And then just like anything else, once you start building the confidence, you see that it works, that applications actually don't break and they actually function. Everyone starts being a believer in that it can work. And then you start to build your sort of pipeline of applications that are going to be migrated. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, let me build on that. I totally agree with what Justin's saying. For us, and I think a lot of organizations, and we were certainly stuck in this mode, is I think we end up worrying too much in the beginning about how we're going to support things way down the road and things that are going to be years away. And we really struggled to get some momentum going with the cloud, because we were spending a lot of cycles debating and trying to come up with perfect standards and trying to define the right way to do it or the united way to do it. And it wasn't working for us. And so we really, I would say, democratized it. And we just challenged almost all of our teams to just get started, pick an application and go. And we knew that we may end up in a world where we have a lot of variation in what we do, but the alternative we were in is we weren't making any progress. And so we ended up sort of unleashing the organization. And I have to say, it surpassed even my wildest dreams in terms of how fast, once we sort of let people go and learn and figure it out, how fast the momentum was. And now we're at the point now that we've got a decent, significant part of our environment in the cloud that we can really start to ask ourselves, what are the right level of standards we need to drive for each of the teams? What is important in terms of how we need to standardize certain things. But I think doing that too soon and worrying too much about sort of the end state, you'll never get going. And we lit 1,000 fires, and while not all of them grew into blazes, a lot of them did. A lot more than you thought, and that kind of energy and excitement got more people excited, and then it stopped being a tops down initiative, and it started being people excited about sharing what they're doing, learning from other people, and so if you're sitting here and you're thinking about it, I think to Justin's point, you just got to do it, and know that whatever you do is not going to be perfect. But the good news is you'll have many more chances to improve in the future. So,
I know that United Airlines was the first airline in the world to use biofuel. I know you're using electricity for your ground fleet. I'm also aware from being on board, you've replaced the plastic utensils with bamboo. So your customers are demanding, greater stewardship of the environment. And I see everything that your organization is doing to move towards sustainability. Is there any way that you can share how AWS specifically is helping you in order to undertake the sustainability projects?
Yeah, no, that I think two things. Obviously, we're from just a purely technology perspective. Obviously, we believe that being in the AWS cloud is more efficient than running our own data centers. So there's certainly a savings of energy associated with that and sustainability. But more importantly, the reality is that to really drive efficiency, you've got to fly more efficient. You've got to manage, the movement of your aircraft more efficiently, and AWS has enabled us to set up analytics platforms and other tools that allow us to fly more efficiently, to decide when to burn fuel, when not to burn fuel, and a lot of those algorithms and a lot of that AI and machine learning that is required to really get to the next level would not be possible if we weren't able to leverage these cloud-based tools. So it's been a big part of it. Obviously, fuel is, it's the single biggest thing is jet fuel is what drives our carbon footprint, and unfortunately there is no substitute on scale. Obviously, there's sustainable jet fuel, but it's not nearly enough to operate all the planes. But we got to chip away at it and finding smarter ways to fly, smarter ways to maintain our aircraft, better routes, all the things you described is critical, and AWS is a big part of that.
Awesome. With Jason introducing fuel as the central theme, I'm curious, Justin, might you share, how does AWS help to fuel the innovation at Dine Brands?
Well, it's part and parcel to it. I mean, we can't do the innovation without cloud. I mean, that's the net of it. I mean, when you think about As I said, the new point of sale is going to be on the AWS cloud, and the way in which we're able to use cloud and things like DevOps and all other technologies, right, that are tied to it has been remarkable. And I would say that the AWS team has been phenomenal, because as we move to the cloud, it's always important that you're optimizing your environments, right? You're finding better ways to manage your workloads that are there. And I would have to say that AWS team has been phenomenal there. But getting back to the cloud implementation and our point of sale, data protection, data privacy, the ability to if leverage the geographic diversity and redundancy, resiliency that comes with the AWS environment is phenomenal. And as we're growing, we'll have essentially 3,700 locations that are going to be on the cloud at some point once we complete our point of sale rollouts. But the flexibility, as I said before, with the websites, which is a big deal for us, being able to spin up more capacity on demand has been huge.
I think that actually brings us to maybe a fun way to close out our session. Let me maybe start with you, Justin. So travel is resuming, as we've been talking about. I would love to know, what would be the next city that you would like to visit for personal travel?
Well, I'm a big Formula One person, and I think the Sydney Grand Prix is coming up sometime in the August timeframe. So that would be, if I can work a deal with Jason, that'd be phenomenal. We can get him some pancakes. He can give me some air miles, and we can work a deal there. So.
Well, I am a big fan of pancakes, so I think there may be a deal to be had, and I certainly, I have 3 sons, and they we eat a lot of Sunday pancakes, so we might be able to work something out.
So knowing that Justin takes feedback and that influences the culinary direction, maybe share what's your favorite flavor pancake, or maybe one that you would aspire to have for the future.
Yeah, look, I'm a pancake classic. Like, I just want a regular pancake, a little bit of butter, a little bit of syrup. Like, I think there's no reason to spoil perfection. Now, my kids will get chocolate chips and blueberries and strawberries and bananas and all this crazy stuff, and I'm like, no, just give me a regular pancake, a little bit of syrup. So Justin, keep doing what you're doing, because I like what you're making. So thank you for that.
Fantastic. I love a traditionalist. Well, please allow me to extend a heartfelt appreciation to both Justin and Jason for joining us. I really appreciate you sharing your journey, learning how both of your beloved brands are actually innovating on behalf of your customers. Truly inspiring. I hope that all of our attendees today leave with insights, some best practices, places to start if they haven't done already, and really just with an energy and excitement to be able to make a difference for their brands. So thank you so much for joining us on this webinar, and have a great day.